The Old Myers Place, a young adult novel by Kelly O'Rourke. Prologue. Oh God, I've got to get out of here! A dark shape emerged from the woods and darted across the street toward the house. His hot breath hung in the freezing night air as he squatted down, his face hidden in the shadows of the tool shed. His hateful eyes greedily watched the sexy red-headed girl through her bedroom window, lazing about on her bed as if she didn't have a care in the world. A vicious growl escaped from his lips. A rush of adrenaline pumped through his body as his feet led him around the back of her house. He violently slashed away a thick mass of ivy that clung against the metal power box. With the crude, rusted axe in his filthy hand, he hacked ribbons of wire loose from their deeply rooted nesting inside the box. The power groaned off and the house went dark. The shape silently moved up the steps of the back porch and began tugging on the flimsy screen door. Mary sat up on her bed and shrieked when the electricity suddenly snapped off. She forced herself to stay calm as she groped around for one of her aromatherapy candles. She squinted in the darkness and found a book of matches in her bedside dresser. The tiny orange flame let off a puff of sulfur as she touched it to the wick of an evergreen-scented candle. Mary cupped the candle in her hands. The flickering light shone eerily around the room. Suddenly, her heartbeat thudded heavily as she heard a rattling at the back door. "Oh, God, no," she whispered. Her voice quivered. "Mom? Dad? Is that you?" Mary panicked. "Of course it's not my parents. They would have used the front door." She silently moved across her room and picked up the phone receiver. A pang of terror shot through her brain as she discovered that the line was dead as well. "Oh, God, I've got to get out of here." The light rattling against the back door swiftly turned into desperate, maniacal pounding. But the loud, forceful thuds were drowned out by the dreadful sound of her furiously pumping heart. "Is the deadbolt locked? I can't remember." Suddenly, the door downstairs crashed open with jarring force. Mary jumped backward and sucked in her breath. "Help me! Somebody please help me!" she screamed in her head. Heavy footsteps clunked across the hardwood floor and moved swiftly up the stairs. Before Mary could blow out the candle and hide, she heard her bedroom doorknob rattling. "No! No!" she screamed. She hurled her body against the door and racked her brain for some way to escape the nightmarish situation. Her eyes darted around in the pitch-black darkness, searching for something, anything to use as a weapon. Mary shrieked and watched in horrified fascination as the weight on the other side of the door buckled the wood inward. With a splitting noise, the lock popped and the door crashed wide open. Chapter 1. Mary White sat on the porch swing trying to enjoy the October sunset. Steam billowed up from her mug of herbal tea as she put it to her lips. The hot, sweet liquid took the edge off the chilly wind that tasseled through her long auburn hair. Mary snuggled into her aquamarine sweatshirt. She glanced away from the opal-colored sky and looked over her shoulder at the house. Funny, it still didn't feel like home. Even though the moving cartons had been unpacked months ago, and she set up her room just like it had been back in Los Angeles, it just wasn't quite right. She sighed and took another sip of tea. Maybe if it was just the stress of moving to a small town and having to leave her friends behind just before her senior year. Most of the kids at her new high school were pretty cool, though. They hadn't been as backward as she'd expected. Her old friends in Los Angeles had warned her that the kids in Illinois would be 3 years behind in fashion and music. But everyone seemed to be pretty hip out here. Mary had instantly been picked up by the popular clique when school started. She was pretty and self-confident, not to mention interesting, which scored her more than enough points with the local socialites. Mary felt mysterious and kind of liked being the new girl with no past. No one here would ever know what she looked like with silver braces across her teeth, or how she fainted and fell off the risers during a chorus performance in 7th grade. They'd never know that, just last year, she was one of the wildest girls in Los Angeles, that she wore black leather and dyed her hair jet black. Here she could be whatever she chose to be. Here she had a totally clean slate. Her old wardrobe and crazy life were 2,000 miles behind her. It was her new house. That was the current problem. Her house had a past, just like she did. Some of the kids had just about died when she told them where she lived. Instantly, they filled her in on the house's blood-curdling history. Mary was horrified to find out that her house had been the home of a serial killer named Michael Myers. They said that he'd murdered his own sister with a butcher knife on Halloween night, 25 years ago, in what was now Mary's room. They told her grisly tales of how he escaped from a mental hospital 15 years later and came back to Haddonfield, where he murdered 12 teenagers on Halloween. They said that he returned to Haddonfield again last Halloween. Officials had blamed him for the murders of 6 more people just last year, but they never captured him or had any hard evidence that it was Michael Myers. So they still called her house the old Myers place. They said the police never found his body. They said he was still alive. They said he was still out there and thirsty for blood. Mary shrugged most of it off as urban folklore, and everyone soon stopped teasing her. Besides, there really wasn't much left of the original house after her parents had remodeled it in hospital-sterile white paint and stucco. But sometimes at night, Mary would be unable to sleep. She would toss and turn, wondering just how much of it was true. Mary's new friends seemed to accept her even though she lived in the old Myers place, and saw her as just a cool new girl from the West Coast. They sometimes teased her with the nickname Valley Girl because of her California accent. Like, "What are you talking about?" she'd playfully respond, always getting a laugh. The pink sunset cast a beautiful glow against the clean white paint on Mary's house. It reminded her of the first time she'd ever seen Jeff Wayland. She remembered how he'd terrified her. It was just after they'd moved into the house in August. Her parents were on a total remodeling kick, and the old Victorian house was in complete shambles. Mary couldn't understand why they'd bought this old house instead of a new one, since they'd practically gutted it only to rebuild the entire thing. But her parents had insisted that the house was a classic, and they'd paid nearly nothing for it. Mary had just woken up on that warm Saturday morning and had heard a strange scratching noise at her window. Figuring it was just a bird, she'd stepped out of bed wearing only a t-shirt and a pair of flowered bikini briefs. She'd screamed when she saw the handsome face of a teenage boy peering through her second-story window. He'd stared at her for a moment before he disappeared. Her mother had rushed into her room. "What's the matter, Mary? Are you hurt?" Mary had grabbed her scarlet silk robe from the headboard of the bed and thrown it around her shoulders. "Somebody was watching me. Somebody was looking in my window," she cried. Mary's mom had peeked out the window and laughed. Her hair was the same reddish shade as Mary's, but it was cut short. "It's just the carpenter's son, honey. We hired them to do the final touches on the house. I reminded you yesterday that he would be painting the shutters this morning. But you never listen, do you?" she'd said. "Jeff is a very young man, and very nice, just about your age. I asked him if he'd show you around Haddonfield this afternoon. I hope you don't mind. I thought you'd like to meet some kids your age besides your cousin Julifer before you started school next month." "Mom!" Mary had gasped. "You set me up on a date with a guy who'd seen me in my underwear? This is so totally humiliating." Mary had gingerly stepped over to the window and seen a handsome young man in faded jeans climbing down a ladder, his dark blonde hair sparkling in the morning sunlight. He'd looked up at the window and quickly turned away when he saw Mary standing there. His cheeks had been red with embarrassment. He was really cute, too, which had made Mary feel even more like a total idiot. Mrs. White had scurried out of the room and called, "Well, if you would have put up those drapes last week like I told you to." Mary had flopped onto her bed and buried her head to her hands, feeling hopelessly frustrated. She knew her mom had just been trying to help out, but she preferred to make her own dates. "Thank you very much." "What a great start," she thought sarcastically. But at least maybe now I won't have to hang out with my creepy cousin Julifer when school starts. Mary's cousin Julifer was only going to be a sophomore next year, and the two girls did not get along. Julifer was completely into the alternative music scene and wore black clothing and painted her face with ridiculous black and white makeup all the time. The music she listened to wasn't so bad, but her gothic, creepy attire was just a little too drastic for the small town of Haddonfield. Mary had decided to change her wild looks and try to start over as a new person when they moved here. Her wild club-going days in L.A. were over, and she didn't want the kids at school to think she was anything like her stupid cousin. As the last blinding ray of orange sunlight disappeared over the hills, Mary set her empty teacup next to the jack-o'-lantern by the porch front door. It was almost Halloween now, and things had sure changed since that day she'd met Jeff. Jeff, she sighed. What a jerk. Mary heard the phone ringing in the house. She grabbed her cup and rushed inside to answer before the machine picked up. She huffed, "Hello?" and sat down on the white leather sofa. She stretched the phone cord from the pine and table. "We've got to get a cordless," she mumbled. "Hey, Shannon," she said into the receiver. "What's the latest dirt?" Mary closed her eyes and pictured her new friend. Shannon Geary was extremely tall and wore her dark hair in a stylish, sleek bob with the sides clipped back in little barrettes. She looked a little like Winona Ryder and was one of the wealthiest and most popular girls at Haddonfield High. But she was a major gossip. Mary had quickly learned. You had to be careful what you said around Shannon, unless, of course, you wanted the whole school to know. Mary's cheeks blushed and a smile spread across her face as she listened to her friend. "You're kidding!" she cried. "The Josh Pender is going to ask me out?" Mary kicked off her designer aerobic shoes and buried her toes in the white shag carpeting. Josh Pender was only the coolest, greatest-looking guy in town. She'd had a major crush on the Brad Pitt look-alike since school started. So did every other girl in town. Mary held the phone by her shoulder. "This is too cool! Thanks for the 411, Shannon. I'll see you tomorrow." Mary hung up and smiled to herself. She turned on the TV and surfed the channels all the way to MTV. "Josh Pender!" she squealed in between music videos. She wondered when and where he was going to do the asking. Josh hung out with the same crowd as Mary, but he was always flirting with all the girls and could never seem to hang exclusively with one member of the female species for longer than a week. Mary toyed with the idea of turning him down to avoid becoming another one of his heartbroken victims. "Nah," she said. "It would be too much fun to try and be the one to finally tame the tiger." He'd been flirting with her lately, but then he flirted with everybody. Every girl in school drooled over him. Since her parents wouldn't be home until later, Mary turned up the volume of the TV, then flipped on the track lights in the living room, and went upstairs to pick out an awesome outfit for the next day. Her parents had been working late a lot these days. They were architects and had been hired to design Haddonfield's mega shopping mall, which had been the main reason for the move across the country. Her parents had been recommended for the job by Mary's Uncle Bob, who lived in Haddonfield and was on the city planning committee. The mall was scheduled to be open by Thanksgiving weekend, which meant that she'd be seeing little to none of the folks for the next month or so. Mary had understood that this job was a big break for them. To make up for the damage of uprooting her from Los Angeles, they'd bought her a new red convertible. In return, Mary had promised to clean up her act and stay out of trouble. "Life is good," she exclaimed as she danced in front of her dressing mirror. Things really were going pretty well. Mary realized that for the first time in her life, she and her parents were considered rich, whereas in Los Angeles they had been just another middle-class family. Mary stepped inside her walk-in closet and thumbed through the new wardrobe. Even the clothes were cheaper out here, which allowed her Threads budget to stretch beyond her wildest dreams. She pulled a pair of black designer jeans and a white cashmere sweater from the hangers and tore off the price tags. She shimmied herself into the skin-tight denim and twirled around to catch a rear view. She smiled, satisfied that her choice would do nothing but encourage Josh to ask her out. "Now for the do," she said, sighing. She disapprovingly lifted up a long lock of her baby-fine hair. "Definitely a day to cramp." Mary went back into her closet and began searching for the box with her crimping iron in it. She pushed aside her winter coat and sweaters to shed a little light on the boxes lined against the closet wall. She hadn't put kinks in her hair for nearly a year, ever since the fad had fizzled out back home. But here all the girls were doing it. She laughed, remembering how her friends in L.A. had told her about the small-town fashion time warp. "So they're only 1 year behind you? Oh well, when in Rome, do as the Romans do," she said with a chuckle. Mary saw the box she was looking for in the far corner on the floor. She reached behind a larger box, stretching as far as she could. "Shoot!" she exclaimed. Mary's gold tennis bracelet fell from her wrist to the floor with a light jingling sound. She pushed aside the large cardboard box, which was filled with her old shoes. She knew she would be in big trouble if she lost that bracelet. It had been a special gift from her parents on her last birthday, and she never took it off, not even in the shower. The bracelet dangled by its shiny clasp between the floorboards. Carefully, ever so carefully, she pinched the clasp in her fingers. She breathed a sigh of relief as she gently tugged at the chain to free it. But before she could wriggle it loose, the bracelet slipped from her fingers and disappeared into the black space between the boards. "No!" she cried. "Oh, no!" Mary knelt down on her knees, desperately trying to catch a glimpse of the gold bracelet. She had to find it. She pushed her long hair from her face and leaned toward the floor, peering through the crack between the floorboards. She saw nothing but what seemed to be an endless blackness. Mary wondered what was down there. She hadn't seen an empty space in floor plans for the remodeling. Mary didn't like the idea of going down there, not at all. The horrible history of the house flashed through her mind, but she had to find it. Mary tugged gently at one of the soft old boards, lifting it up a little. She reached inside and waved her hand around, feeling nothing but cold, damp air. A loud sound from under the house startled Mary. She jerked her arm from the boards and jumped to her feet, her heart pounding heavily in her chest. What was down there? Mary stepped backward out of the closet, her eyes glued to the floor. Suddenly, she heard footsteps downstairs. They were moving closer. They were coming up the stairs. Fear welled up in her stomach. A small, swallowing sound came from her throat. Her heart thudded in her ears, drowning out all other noises. She opened her mouth to scream as the doorknob turned. Mrs. White popped her head through the doorway. "Hi, Mary. We brought home some Chinese takeout." She stared at her daughter for a moment, wondering why she looked so startled. "Honey, are you okay?" she asked. Mary let out a little laugh, relieved that it was just her parents. "I'm fine, Mom. Never mind," she said. Mrs. White smiled. "Okay, we'll see you downstairs, honey." Chapter 2. Haddonfield High. Mary stuffed a stack of books into her locker and removed her pink nylon lunch bag. She peeked inside. Gross. It was a tuna sandwich and chips again. She imagined Josh Pender asking her out and then changing his mind after she just about killed him with her fish breath. Mary glanced down the corridor, which was bustling with students. She hadn't seen Josh anywhere today. Mary saw Kimmy Harrison waving at her cheerfully. Kimmy's long blonde hair bounced as she bounded down the hall. She wore a black and white pinstripe coat over black stretch pants with a pair of hot pink loafers. Kimmy wasn't particularly pretty, but she was cute. She had the bubbliest personality Mary had ever seen. "Hey, Valley Girl," Kimmy chirped. "Did Josh ask you out yet?" Mary's cheeks flushed. "No. As a matter of fact, I haven't even seen him today." Mary was a little annoyed and wondered how many people Shannon had shared this information with. This is so embarrassing. Does the whole school keep up with Josh's love life, or what? "Yep, pretty much," Kimmy smiled. "Small town, remember?" "Yeah," Mary sighed. "I don't know if I'll, ever get used to it. I mean, where I come from, people actually have lives, you know?" Kimmy put her arm around Mary as they walked toward the cafeteria. Don't get stressed, Mary. It'll give you wrinkles. Mary relaxed a little. Do I look okay? I mean, do you think he'll back out or anything? Kimmy smiled. You look hot, girlfriend. I love the outfits. Size 4? Mary snorted. As if, but thanks for the compliment. Kimmy pulled her jacket down over her hips. She was a little too heavy for her small frame, but she hit it well. Of course he's not going to back out, Mary. Don't worry. At the cafeteria, Mary and Kimmy strode over to their usual table by the window. Shannon was already there, dressed in a stylish black turtleneck sweater. Shannon's sterling silver heart charm dangled from her neck as she leaned over to whisper something in Tanya Taylor's ear. Tanya flipped back her curly blonde hair, which was cascading down the front of her pale blue ski sweater. Her jaw dropped as she listened. Shannon quickly sat down when she saw Mary and Kimmy walking over. Tanya gave Mary the once-over with her blue eyes before she flashed an insincere smile. Shannon squeezed a pack of blue cheese dressing onto her salad. Hey girls, what's up? She asked. Mary had the feeling that she had just been the subject of their whispered conversation. She twisted the black velvet scrunchie that held her reddish hair in a neat ponytail. Nothing much, she said. Kimmy sensed the awkward tension between her friends. She grabbed her pink suede purse and pulled out a crumpled $10 bill. I have got to get a diet soda. I'm practically dying of thirst. See you in a few. Mary wondered what she was doing, sitting there at the table. Her new friends certainly didn't feel like true blue pals today. In fact, they almost never did. It was like walking on a tightrope every day. You never knew who was going to be mad at you, who was going to be mad at other people, or why they were mad at anybody. Mary spotted a group of scraggly misfit girls in the corner watching the action at her table with envy. If they only knew how unstable it was hanging with the popular kids, being a popular kid, they'd want to stay right where they were, Mary thought. Shannon's little heart-shaped barrettes gleamed under the fluorescent lights. So, Mary, what's the latest? She asked. Mary couldn't say the word nothing again, and she certainly didn't want to talk about the fact that Josh hadn't asked her out yet. She felt like she was losing the mysterious appeal that had gotten her into this elite social circle. She had to think of something interesting to say, and fast. She lowered her voice to a dramatic whisper. The weirdest thing happened to me last night. Shannon set down her plastic fork and leaned in closer. She looked as if she were going to start taking notes. Oh, yeah? She coaxed. Mary smiled to herself. Now that she had the spotlight, she turned on the California accent full volume. Like, yeah, oh my gosh. I was in my closet looking for something, and my favorite bracelet fell between the floorboards. You know, the chunky 18-karat one I always wear? Tanya let out a loud, exaggerated yawn. Thrilling, she said icily. Shannon shot Tanya a warning look. She turned to Mary. Go on. Mary continued. Well, the bracelet disappeared into the floorboard, and I had to pry up an old piece of wood to see where it had gone. It was like really dark, and I reached down there under the house. She paused for effect. Shannon was sitting on the edge of her seat. Yeah? So what happened? Mary looked into Tanya's narrowed eyes. I felt a cold draft blowing down there. I mean, like, really cold. And then I heard something. Something was under the house. And then? Mary suddenly grabbed Shannon and Tanya's hands. The girls screamed. Shannon snatched her hand away from Mary's firm grasp. You dork! You scared me to death, she cried. She began laughing hysterically. But that was a good one. Tanya composed herself. You're not funny, she said seriously. How can you even joke about something like that when you live in the house from hell? Mary was sick and tired of Tanya's attitude problem. She was pretty on the outside, but her snobby aura made her difficult to hang out with most of the time. Lighten up, Mary snapped. Like, at least I don't have the personality from hell. Anger flashed in Tanya's eyes. Well, if you don't like it, maybe you should just leave. she said coldly. Chill out, you two. People are looking at us, Shannon hissed. Tanya glared at Mary. Whatever. Kimmy returned and took a gulp of her diet soda. Can you just feel the love at this table? She said sarcastically. What is it with you guys today? Shannon glanced at Tanya. Nothing, she said with a smirk. Kimmy pointed at the cafeteria window. Ooh, don't look now, girls, but check it out. The girls slowly turned around. Josh Pender was walking towards the cafeteria doors. Mary sucked in her breath. He is too good-looking to be real, Mary thought. Josh Pender's dark blonde hair hung loosely around his perfect face. His hands were in his pockets of his faded jeans, which were just snug enough to show off his incredible body. Josh smiled crookedly through the window, revealing that set of perfect pearly whites. He was perfect. And he was coming toward her. She felt dizzy and lightheaded as he gave her a little wave. Mary could feel her face turning red. The girls were staring at her, especially Tanya. Shannon and Kimmy started giggling. Mary wished she could disappear somewhere to get it together before she started stammering or doing something equally embarrassing. Mary listened to the trickle of hellos direct toward Josh as he walked past tables of kids in the cafeteria. Josh's light, fresh cologne arrived a split second before he did. Mary felt a chill as the sleeve of his fleecy red flannel shirt brushed against her wrist when he squeezed in next to her at the crowded table. Hello, ladies, Josh said, an ear-to-ear grin on his face. Before Mary could respond, Tanya gave him a wink with her frosty blue eyes. Her voice became sickeningly sweet. Hi, Josh. Mary here was just telling us a disgusting little story about the ghost in her house. She lowered her voice, as if she were sharing some intimate secret with him. Did you know that she actually lives in the old Myers place? Mary wanted to reach across the table and strangle the bitch. It suddenly became obvious to her that Tanya was jealous and was trying to make a fool of her. But Mary was smarter than to let a cheap shot like that push her buttons. She forced herself to laugh as Josh turned to face her. Yeah? He asked. What happened? With a hint of sarcasm in her voice, Mary said, You know Michael Myers? It's almost Halloween, and he hasn't found a date yet. So he asked me out last night, and I said to him, Get real, buddy. I like my men wild and crazy, but not in the literal sense. Everyone broke up in laughter except Tanya, who fixed a vicious look at Mary. Josh's eyes were lit up with amusement. You are so funny, Mary. He laughed, then dramatically clasped her hand in his. Please don't go out with Michael Myers. I just die of jealousy. Go out with me on Halloween. I promise. I won't go postal or anything. Mary was shocked and exhilarated all at the same time. He was still holding her hand. It felt so warm and nice. She couldn't believe he'd just asked her out right here in front of everybody. Her stomach fluttered as she felt the eyes of her friends watching. She said playfully. I'll have to, think about the pros and cons of my dating options. Let's see. You're alive. That's good. He's a zombie. Could be boring. You've got a reputation as a lady killer. He's got a reputation as a serial killer. Josh laughed. Come on, Mary. I want you to be my date at the Halloween party on Saturday night. Shannon chimed in. Halloween party? Whose Halloween party? Josh smiled proudly. Mine. My parents decided to go into New York City for the weekend. I am officially the man of the house. He looked at Mary hopefully. So are you coming with me or what? Sure, she replied. Sounds like a blast. Josh scooted a little closer to her. Oh, it will be. We'll have a really good time. He kissed her hand with his full lips, which sent a chill down Mary's spine. Then he gave her a smile and glanced at his watch. Gotta go, girls. I've got people to see and things to do. He stood up and winked at Mary. Maybe I'll catch you later. We could get together before Halloween or something, he suggested. He is so gorgeous, Mary thought. Yeah, okay, she smiled. Josh gave her his trademark crooked grin. "I'll call you later." Shannon rolled her eyes and whispered, "Famous last words." Kimmy squealed as Josh left the table. "Oh my God," she breathed enviously. "You are so lucky, Mary. I've never seen him ask out a girl in public. He practically begged you." Tanya stood up. She looked really angry. "Luck has nothing to do with it," she blurted out. "He's only interested in your reputation." "What?" Mary cried. "Like, what are you talking about?" Tanya spat out her words like venom. "Everyone knows that girls from Los Angeles are easy." Kimmy's cute little face became twisted with fury, a side of her Mary had never seen. "How dare you say that to Mary?" she defended. "You should be talking. You're the one who's always bragging about all the guys you date." Tanya slammed her lunch tray on the table. "Well, at least I can get a date, Kimmy," she shouted, staring angrily at her. Kimmy grabbed Mary's hand. "Come on, let's get away from this psycho, okay?" Shannon stopped them, feeling awkwardly divided between her friends. "Come on, you guys, knock it off. You're all acting like complete idiots." Tanya stood up and smoothed her black miniskirt over her long legs. She looked as if she were going to burst into tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered as she ran out of the cafeteria. Mary let out a long, low whistle. "Whoa, what is her problem today?" "Duh," Shannon said. "She's crushing hard on Josh, and he just asked you out instead of her. You're going to have to get used to the jealousy. If you go out with the Joshster, it comes with the territory." Mary sighed guiltily. "I feel terrible. I had no idea she was so infatuated with him. Maybe I should call it off." "No!" Kimmy told her. "She'll get over it. She'll be drooling over someone else by tomorrow afternoon." "Yeah, really," Shannon said. "Don't worry about it, Tanya, okay? You should be worrying more about your date with Josh." Mary gave her a confused look. "What do you mean?" Kimmy and Shannon giggled. As if she were talking to a child, Kimmy informed her. "Mary, Josh is the one with a nasty reputation around here." Shannon whispered. "He's known for always getting his way, if you know what I mean." "Yeah, Mary, you better be careful," Kimmy warned. "I've seen the aftermath of his love life, and it's not very pretty." "All's fair in love and war," Mary stated. She undid her ponytail and tossed her crimped hair back. "Besides, it's not like I haven't gone out with his type before. Los Angeles is crawling with gorgeous guys, just like Josh. I can handle him, and anyone else, that happens to come along, for that matter." "Well, I just hope you're as big a girl as you say you are," Shannon said. "Thanks for the advice, Mommy," Mary laughed. Shannon stood up and stretched, revealing her belly button. "It's been real. I'll catch you guys later," she said. Kimmy grabbed her bag and followed Shannon, explaining, "I've got to go find my history book before next period. See you later, Mary." Mary gave them a little wave. She knew that they were going off to discuss what had just happened, but she didn't care. She had a date with the most sought-after guy in school. Mary took a victorious bite of her tuna sandwich. She was starving. As Mary was eating the last fragments of her potato chips, she suddenly had the feeling that she was being watched. She glanced around the cafeteria, but no one appeared to be looking at her. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a face peering through the window. But when she turned around to look, the face was gone. "Weird," she mumbled. Mary decided that she should get going. Her algebra class started in 10 minutes, and they were going to be taking a test today. She stuffed her lunch sack into her black leather backpack and slung it over her shoulder. A few kids said hi to her as she made her way toward the cafeteria doors. Mary remembered the face that had been watching her. She made a point to study the kids hanging out by the cafeteria window to see who it had been. "Oh, great," Mary mumbled when she saw her cousin, Julie, or Julifer, which was her Gothic name, and the one she insisted the family call her by. She and another girl were sitting on the brick wall beside the window. Mary and Julifer definitely didn't get along. Julifer was a sophomore and totally into the alternative music scene. Ever since Mary had shown up in town with her new, clean-cut looks, Julifer had branded her a geek and a sellout. Julifer was sitting with her friend Michelle, who had a puke-green mohawk and a nose ring. Michelle sneered at Mary as she slyly took a puff of a clove cigarette. She handed it to Julifer, who had her bleached white hair all ratted out and her eyes caked with black makeup. Mary gave the girls a polite smile. Michelle snuffed out the smoke and scowled threateningly at Mary. "What are you looking at, prom queen?" she growled. Julie opened her black trench coat to reveal a neon green mini dress, which she wore over a pair of ripped fishnet stockings. "Maybe the Barbie doll wants a few fashion tips," she jeered. "How's it going, cuz?" Mary smiled to herself as if remembering something. Michelle and Julifer stared dumbly at Mary, waiting for her to say something. Mary nodded. "Hi, Julifer. I was just looking for someone," she said casually. Michelle pointed her spiky green hair toward Mary. "Well, you're looking on the wrong side of the glass, baby. Don't you know that stuck-up rich little twits like you don't belong out here? This is freak territory." Mary was intrigued by the two girls and forgot all about looking for whoever had been spying on her. "Oh, yeah? Well, go ahead and fly your freak flag. Do your magic, do your voodoo. Follow me, girl, and do what I do." Julifer instantly recognized the song lyrics. "Hey, Mary, how'd you know that song by Electric Voodoo Skulls?" she said suspiciously. Michelle jumped off the wall and brushed some dust off the seat of her plaid pants. "She probably read about it in Teeny Bopper magazine," she said. The girl rolled her eyes and threw her hands up in the air. "Is nothing sacred?" Sneering, Mary said, "I went to their concert last summer, and I even went backstage. But you small-town dorks wouldn't know about stuff like that. The closest thing you've ever seen to a concert is the church choir. You guys are so 5 years ago." Michelle stroked her mohawk and snorted. "Yeah, right. And I'm Mother Teresa." Julifer scowled at Mary and looked at Michelle. She used to have black hair and looked halfway decent. She blinked her heavily made-up eyes. "She used to be cool," she said, cringing at Mary's wholesome appearance. "But that was before she moved out here and turned over a new leaf." Mary shot Julifer a warning look. "Shut up, Julifer, I mean it." Julifer snickered, knowing that she had major dirt on her cousin. She knew the whole story, the one that would forever tarnish Mary's reputation with her new buddies. A single slip of the lip, and Mary and her new life in Haddonfield were history. "Don't worry, cousin. My lips are sealed." Michelle studied Mary's face closely. She pointed to Mary's ear, which had a single diamond stud through it, below a line of 7 barely visible earring holes. "She's a sellout," she cackled abrasively. "She moved to a small town and was too afraid to be herself. Am I right?" Mary felt awkward and wished she hadn't bothered to say hello to her obnoxious relative. "Maybe, maybe not. I'll see you guys around." Mary turned to leave, but Julifer followed her. "Hey, I was just kidding around back there. Don't let Michelle's attitude get to you, okay? I think I understand where you're coming from. People in this town can be pretty mean if you look different than they do. Believe me, I know." Mary gave her a half smile. "Yeah, whatever. My freaky days are over, but thanks for the sympathy. See you at Thanksgiving?" A pair of cheerleaders Mary knew walked by. "Hi, Cindy. Hi, Brenda," Mary waved. The two cheerleaders totally ignored Mary and took a double take at Julifer's wild, ratted hair. They began whispering and giggling to themselves as they bounced off. "What?" Mary called out to them. Do I have the plague or something?" Julifer lowered her head. "I'd better take off. We don't want people to think we're hanging out or anything." She laughed half-heartedly. "My friends would die if they knew I was talking to someone like you. I'd be the laughingstock of the Gothic scene." Mary nodded in mutual agreement, not getting too upset at the sarcastic nature of her cousin's comment. remembering that freaks and socias mix about as well as oil and water. Yeah, I'll see you around. Julifer gave her a wink and ducked in between a row of lockers. Mary walked to her locker and spun the combination. Despite the hundreds of chattering students who poured through on their way to class, it was chilly in the hallway. Mary remembered her date with Josh and smiled to herself. She wondered if he would actually call her like he'd said he would. Mary pulled her binder notebook and algebra book from her locker. She was about to turn around when she suddenly felt a pair of eyes watching her from behind. A creepy feeling stuck with her until she finally spun around. Jeff, she said with a sigh. Jeff Wayland, her ex-boyfriend, was standing there staring at her. He was wearing his standard pair of faded jeans and a paint-splattered navy sweatshirt. His dark blonde hair was hanging in his stormy blue eyes. She remembered how their brief summer romance had gone sour just before school had started. How weird and moody he was. How he'd broken up with her. The anger welled up inside. His face became red as if he'd just been caught doing something illegal, and his voice cracked as he said, Hi, Mary. Mary slammed her locker shut and turned away from him. Hello, she said unemotionally. Jeff didn't move. He stuffed his hands in his pockets and swayed slightly. He cleared his throat. Mary, I heard you're dating Josh Pender. I just wanted to... Mary's stomach tightened into a knot. Did the whole school know? She spun around furiously. Who I date is like none of your freaking business, Jeff. Just leave me alone. Mary stalked off. How dare he even mention Josh's name, she thought. Jeff called out, finishing his sentence. I just wanted to warn you. Mary stopped and turned around. Jeff was leaning against a row of lockers with a concerned look on his face. Stay away from him. He's dangerous, he said to her. He looked down at his worn-out work boots and walked away. Dangerous? Of all the psychotic, strange things to say. What is his problem anyway? She wondered. He just must be jealous, she rationalized. He's sorry. He's sorry that he blew it with me. Okay, this has been the prologue and chapters 1 and 2 of Halloween, the Old Myers Place. Wow, this book is very YA, isn't it? It's such a young adult novel. I'm not going to judge it too fiercely yet. We're only 30 pages in. Michael's not really even shown up full-time yet. So I'm gonna forego my judgment at this point. I'm not going to say anything good. I'm not going to say anything bad. I'm just going to leave it at tonight's upload. Let me know what you guys thought of the characters in tonight's chapters in the comment section. And I promise you there is some killing in this book, and Michael Myers will be here. And I'll see you soon with some more of Halloween, the Old Myers Place. Until next time, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian saying, thanks for listening, and, totally come back and listen again. Alright guys, thank you so much for listening to tonight's upload. Be sure to click Michael Myers' lovely face above to subscribe to this channel. Also check out the links there at the end of the video. Couple of my favorite audiobooks I've done so far. I think you might enjoy them as well. Also check the description below for some awesome trailers to some fan-made Jason movies coming out, as well as the link to the 80 Slasher Librarians Facebook, Twitter, and Discord channels. Like I said, guys, click Michael's head above to subscribe and check out those 2 books above. They're really great listens. See you next time.